entries. Thank you. Okay, so once again, good morning to everyone. Uh, so in the last class, we had looked at the connective tissue. Your suggestion of putting the questions, I haven't even finished it yet. I didn't get time to work on it, but next class for sure. So please forgive me for that. With respect to the connective tissue, we already know that there are several examples that we had looked at, including blood or plasma, bones, ligaments, tendons, and cartilage type of tissue. And we had also looked at what intracellular matrix is, what are those cells and fibers present with this connective tissue, and these two types, that is areolar and adipose tissue, which are specifically present in the connective tissue organs. And these were the few examples that we had explained as well in terms of connective tissue. Now, moving forward with respect to the muscular tissue. Now, again, the general what you say morphology or general anatomy of these muscular tissues, you are very much aware of. These are they consist of elongated cells, which are also called as muscle fiber. So the individual single unit which is present in the muscle tissue, that is single elongated cell, is called as muscle fibers. Like when you flex your bicep, tricep, or your muscles in general, anyone, girl or boy, that doesn't matter, but they have these muscle fibers which are made up of these elongated cells. And this tissue, is responsible for the movement of the body. Movement does not literally mean a physical displacement, but it also means the internal movement. Like for example, stomach undergoes a peristalsis movement, that is also a movement, right? Or a tongue movement, that is also a type of movement. So not just the physical displacement we mean here, but it means all the different kinds of movement. Main function, like I said, movement of the body. So the muscles contain special proteins which are called as contractile proteins. Now, if I have to give you an analogy to this, let's say a muscle fiber, which is a cell, it has, you have already studied probably the mitosis process in a brief. It has certain structural arrangement, which is called a cytoskeleton, right? So in general, all the cells, including muscle cells, they have a certain framework within the cell that is called a cytoskeleton. This cytoskeleton has proteins which are named as actin and myosin. These are like literally a protein molecule, and based on their change in the shape, they can be like either contracted or relaxed in terms of their overall shape. So for example, like let's say you have a rectangular sponge, right? A rectangular sponge, and if you fold it into two fold, it's like a contraction of the protein, and when it is like flat, that's something like relaxed protein. And because of this contraction and relaxation of the protein, ultimately your muscles, they become relaxed and contract. Now this was just the analogy. In actual physiology or in actual body system, we do not have rectangular proteins, but the protein shape can be any different, can be randomly spherical, or any other shape, and that way they can relax and contract, and because of that, these muscles, they are able to do the movement part. So that is the contractile proteins which are present in the muscles or muscle fibers. The muscular tissue, now this statement is specifically related to the development of the muscles, like from where they are formed. So in general, again, I'll go back to that developmental part. When the sperm and the ova, they are fused with each other, they will form zygote. Zygote will divide by mitotic division, 1 cell, 2 cell, 4 cell, 8, and so on. And over the time, when it becomes like somewhere around 64 cell stage or so, it develops into 3 layers, right? The outermost is called as ectoderm, mesoderm is the middle one, and endoderm is the inner one. And out of these, the middle tissue, that is mesoderm, will give rise to the muscular tissue. ectoderm will give rise to your skin and so on. Endoderm will give rise to your internal organs like heart and so on. So that way the classification of the organs coming from the embryo happens. So in our case, when we are talking about the muscular tissue, it is the mesoderm layer of the embryo which give rise to the muscles of the body. In general, oh, okay, I assume these things are clear to you as I'm speaking, but yeah, if at all you have questions, please feel free to ask. In general, there are, okay, Yajnesh.
Yeah, sir. So it's not a necessity, right, for muscular tissues to get tired, but still muscular tissues get tired like after some time. So why is that?
Okay, so maybe no. Is there any PE student in your class and have they finished this topic? And if they can answer it, anyone, or I will answer it at the end if no one knows it. There are physical education student, right? Sports, who has taken 6 subject? No one? Okay, anyway, so let me say it. So what happens is, like, when muscles are doing certain activity, that means a body is doing certain activity. Let's say you are working over your bicep or you are just running and so on. The muscles, they undergo a process of metabolism. Muscles, as if within the muscle cells there are metabolic processes, because they take lot of oxygen, they generate more energy, they give strength to the muscles, that is ultimately providing the energy. And the byproduct, as if every reaction has the reactant and the products, right? Oxygen is the reactant, it integrates with the glucose, creates energy, and the byproducts, they are acids, right? Acid in the form of lactic acid. And when lactic acid deposits into the muscle, the tissue becomes a little more acidic and it cannot generate any more energy, and that is when muscles get fatigue, or what we call as tiredness.
So then, like the heart muscle, cardiac muscle, it never gets tired, right? Like,
Correct.
so why can't heart muscles be instead of muscles? Like, why
So,
can't we have?
right. So if you know the difference between which we are ultimately going to see after this, heart muscles, these are specialized type of muscle cells which are called as cardiomyocytes. Cardio refers to heart, myocytes refer to the muscle. So these are special type of muscle cells within the heart, and they have what we call as action potential generation, right? There is certain electrical charge which is generated by the what is that part called as, I forgot, I can't remember. So a structure within the heart, it creates the SA node, sinoatrial node, it is called as. SA node will generate the electrical impulse. It will be passed on across the different cells of the muscles, and because of that, that contraction and relaxation is not completely dependent only on the muscular activity, but it is also assisted with the electrical activity. With the other type of tissue, it is mostly biochemical, or it is mostly what we say a muscular activity, solely muscular activity. In case of cardiac muscles, it is electrical assisted muscle activity, and that is why your cardiac muscles, they never get tired.
Oh,
Also, in terms of the composition of those cells, like cardiomyocytes and the general muscle cells, composition wise, composition in the sense, the type of proteins present in it, or the type of enzymes which are present inside the cytoplasm, they are also little different. So ultimately functions of these cells also differ drastically. Okay, any more questions, anyone? Yashnesh, I hope that was clear.
yeah, sure.
Okay.
So the cardiac muscles, they only do like one function and they're assisted using electricity, right?
Yeah,
So, but the muscles in our arms, for example, they do many things. So that's why they get tired.
yeah.
Okay.
And also if you look at it that way, our let's say bicep, tricep, or quadriceps, or any other muscles which are allowing us to physically move from place to place, these muscles we can overwork with them, right? Overwork in the sense you can do certain activity which is beyond the capacity of that muscle. With cardiac muscle, you know what would happen if you do a activity beyond its capacity. It will just collapse, and you will be you as in that person will be no more. So that way, there are limits with respect to what a particular muscular tissue can do.
So, so when a person dies due to old age, means like the electricity which is providing the heart muscles to beat. So does that stop, like the electricity?
So like, I hope electricity you are not literally referring to
No,
like,
no, no, like
yeah,
pulses.
it's just the action potential, which is the difference of the charge, which creates a dipole. Dipole is nothing but a separate charge. One is at higher charge, other one is at lower charge, and it causes the flow of the ions. So that's what is electricity there. So this activity also stops after a while. Depends on what is the cause of the death. If it is a cardiac arrest, obviously it has stopped right then and there. If it is death by the old age, then obviously the heart stops functioning first, and the cardiac activity is still there for the time being. I guess it stays there for half an hour or so, and that is the time you can resuscitate the person. That is that you must have seen in the movies, they put this electric shock on the person's chest, and they try to revive that person, right? That is because even after death, for a certain time, uh, the body cells, they are very much alive. It just a particular organ has stopped, and we consider that whole body being dead. But otherwise, let's say like in a very hypothetical situation, which is, I don't think it will be possible, but still, just to give it a thought, like let's say it's just the heart which has stopped in the person's body, and it's he or she is no more. If we have time, and within certain let's say 5 minutes, if we can replace the heart, then that person should be alive again, right? Because the cells are still living. In again, like I said, hypothetical situation, because then there are so many complications. You might ask me, the blood will start clotting, the cells will start dying, some of the cells would have already been dead by that time because they need more oxygen and so on. So that is a complicated situation, but in a very simplistic manner, if you have to say this, then that is hypothetically possible situation. It's just like replacement of something which was non-functional, and you are able to replace it within short span of time. It should make it whole body functional again. Yes, Prakriti.
Yeah, so when someone dies, after how long do their cells like die?
So depends on what type of cell are we talking about. Like if it is a brain cell, it will start dying immediately, because brain has a higher demand for oxygen. uh, and like the moment your heart has stopped pumping, ultimately that means there is no oxygen going to the brain. It will stop dying. Let's say if it is a stomach cell, or any abdominal cell or liver cell for that matter, they are not much dependent on the energy from outside, right? Like liver has a lot of metabolic processes happening within itself, and it can regenerate the energy, and it can be alive. That is when we have, like let's say specifically in case of organ transplant, we have different duration of hours for different organs, and that is totally dependent on what is the energy requirement of that particular organ after the death, right? And if it has less requirement, for example like liver, it can survive longer. If it is having high requirement like brain, it can die like very quickly, immediately after the death of a person. So that way it works. Yes. Yes. Nilesh.
So, and I had one more question. So I read this thing. So they said, uh, suppose someone is dead and you don't know the time of death. So what people do is they will check the temperature of the liver and then they will estimate the time of death. So how does that actually work?
I'm not sure of the liver, but in general, whole body temperature goes down over the time. So there is some graph which you can find probably on Google that the after the death of the person, how the body temperature drops. So you probably know that body turns cold after the death, and that drop in temperature that people have measured. I'm not sure of how it is done with the liver, but I doubt people would do that until and unless they want to do liver transplant like experiment. Otherwise, no one will go and check the liver temperature as such.
Oh,
So that is the case. Okay. Any more questions, or shall we move forward here? Fine. So, okay. So coming back to the muscular tissue. So we know now that mesoderm is one of the layer during the embryonic development, that is after the fertilized zygote has been formed in the mother's uterus. From the mesoderm, these muscles they are arised or they are formed. Usually muscles they are of three types: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal muscles. And in like we don't have any other subtypes as such, but these are the three major types. Uh, the function wise, we will see these individually type what are cardiac, what are smooth muscles, and what are skeletal muscles. But in terms of the function, overall function of the muscles, you know, it is used in movement and locomotion. It supports the bone and other structure, and responsible for peristalsis and parturition. Does anyone know what is parturition? Anyone? It's a very interesting word. Every one of you,
so I'm guessing distribution of nutrients.
no. So, okay, let me answer if no one is answering. So, parturition is nothing but the childbirth. That is delivery of the baby. So, you know, when the baby is formed and it's completely grown in within the mother's uterus for 9 months, at the end of 9 months, female gets that what is called as labor pain. That labor pain is because of the muscle movement. So within the uterine muscles, the contraction is happening, and that leads to the pushing of the baby through the vagina of the female on like the outside, and that is what is called as parturition. That is the birth of the baby. That is in simplest term, it is the childbirth. So that is labor pain it is referring to, where the muscular movements they are very very important, because in and you would know it as well, nowadays more complications are arising in the delivery of the baby, because the muscles they are not contracting enough, so that the uterus doesn't get sufficient pressure to push the baby out, and that is when the cesarean section has to be done. So that is how it is related with the muscles. And peristalsis, I assume everyone would know, the stomach movement that happens within the body. Also, peristalsis is the type of movement. It is not only a stomach movement, that you should know as well. Because, for example, peristalsis happens in the intestine. Peristalsis also happen in the esophagus. Peristalsis also happens in the cervix and the vagina, and even in the fallopian tube, which are the reproductive structure in the female body. So in all of these muscular tube-like structures, this peristalsis happens, which is ultimately used for transport of something from across this tubular structure from one place to the other. So like in case of stomach, it is the food. In case of again esophagus, it is still the food. Intestine, again food, or rather digested food, and so on. So that way this peristalsis is very, very important process. So that is the overall function. We will look at the function again later at some time point. Now a little deeper aspect of this muscular tissue. Now I will not read the first point because it has already been discussed enough. The second point says the cytoplasm of this muscle fibers, it is called a sarcoplasm. Now we know a normal cell has a cytoplasm, a muscle cell has a sarcoplasm. Sarco refers to that muscle part, right? So that's when a muscle fiber, which is a cell, elongated cell, it whatever cytoplasm is present within that, that itself is called a sarcoplasm because it is of the muscle cell. It also contains a network of membrane which is called as sarcoplasmic reticulum. Again, in regular cells, we have what we call as endoplasmic reticulum, right? In case of muscle fiber, that is called as sarcoplasmic reticulum. Functions, they remain same. It just one is present in the regular animal cell, and in case of muscle cells, they are specifically called with respect to sarco terminology. So that is sarcoplasmic reticulum. The membrane surrounding the muscle fibers is called as sarcolemma. Lemma in biology refers to layer, right? So that is the layer surrounding the muscle fiber, that is around the what we call as cell membrane. That is nothing but the sarcolemma, right? That is a layer around the muscle fiber or layer around the sarcoplasm. That is sarcolemma. Again, sarco is related to muscles. Lemma means layer. So that layer around the cell of the muscle is called as sarcolemma. So three terminologies: sarcoplasm, that is cytoplasm of the muscle cell; sarcoplasmic reticulum, that is the membrane like structure present inside the cell, which represents like endoplasmic reticulum like structure; and third one is the sarcolemma, which is nothing but the plasma membrane kind of layer which is present around the cell. So these are the general characteristics of a single cell within the muscular tissue. Now, properties of the muscular tissues in general, again you are very much aware of this, that what it can do as a muscle, it can contract. So the contractibility is one of the property. It can shorten forcefully or like involuntarily, depends on what is the situation and which type of muscle. Like for example, heart also contract, but it is involuntary. It happens without any effort because the body is taking care of it. Also, or the bicep, tricep, or hand movement or leg movement, they can also like shorten or contract willingly, that is voluntarily. Then extensibility, that is again opposite of contractibility, that can also happen similar way, either voluntary or involuntary. Elasticity, muscles, they have the specific ability to recoil back to its original length after being stretched. So again, like I said, when we go back to those two names, that is actin and myosin proteins, which are responsible for contraction and relaxation within the muscle cells, ultimately they are the ones which give this elastic nature to the muscle fibers. The reason being because they can be stretched to little more extent. So ultimately the whole muscle fiber can get elongated further. And the last one is the excitability. That means when a muscle tissue is put with a stimulus delivered from a motor neuron or even a hormone, it can respond to that stimulus. So for example, the reflexes that you have in your body, it is a nerve stimulus, right? So let's say you are touching to something which is very hot, the signal is passed down to your spinal cord, and then the spinal cord will send back the signal back to the hand saying that remove your hand. So that contraction of the muscles in your hand or the arm happens because of the nerve stimulus. So that way
So what about a hormone? Like, how can a hormone ask a muscle to contract or
okay, so the again the same example I will give. Uterine contractions, they are hormone based contraction. When now when the body knows that 9th month of the fetus has already finished, so the hypothalamus, which is one part of the brain, will secrete a hormone, and then what is that hormone? Oxytocin, not the hypothalamus. The pituitary gland will secrete a hormone. Pituitary gland is again an endocrine gland present in the brain. That gland will secrete oxytocin. That is the name of the hormone. This oxytocin will act on the uterus muscles. That is hormonal action of that muscle. Hormonal action on the muscle, and that will create the contraction, or what we call as labor pain.
Sure, but is there anything for males, like on a hormone kind of thing for males?
Hormonal action. Uh, in a way, then that way we can call even the erection in the males, like the penile erection. That is also a kind of hormonal, we can say, because ultimately it is the hormone based action. More the testosterone, better the erection in the males. So that way we can relate it, but it is not a direct action as such, and I can't think of any other muscular contraction or relaxation based on hormone in males. Yeah, I can't think of any other example, but erection is surely one of them. So actually, but there are quite many physiological processes involved. So it's not like direct hormonal action on the muscles of the penis as such, but it's like through certain other mechanisms. But in case of female, the oxytocin goes and binds to oxytocin receptors within the uterus, and then it shows the effect in terms of this labor pain or the contraction of the uterine muscles. So that way it is very direct. Okay, I hope that was good answer from my side, and that clarified your doubt. So these are the 4 properties of the muscular tissues: contractibility, extensibility, excitability, and elasticity. So these are the 4 properties. Okay, we will just briefly look at the muscular tissue types, and then we are going to go and into little more details of these types individually. So just to give you again brief idea, we had seen there are skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. Skeletal muscles, they are also called striated muscles because of the certain bands being present. Now again, muscles, they have this actin and myosin band. So when they are present in certain manner, it's like one actin, one myosin, one actin, one myosin, and then they make a stretch of chain. Or you can have 2 or 3 actin together, and then 2 or 3 myosin together, and so on. So depending on what is the arrangement of these proteins within the muscles tissue, they can create a striations, that is pattern or the bands, right? Like you can have a light band and a dark band and a light band and a dark band. So that is a pattern. So that is what is striations, and that's why they are called as striated muscles. And that pattern is created because of the presence of the protein. Yeah. So that is skeletal muscles, or they are also called as voluntary muscles because you can move them voluntarily. Like you can name like any muscles of the leg and hand, you can actually move them based on whatever you wish to do, right? If you want to slap someone, you still have to move your hand, or if you want to hold hand with someone, you still have to move your hand voluntarily. In either of these cases, or even if it is like what we say, like walking, that is you are doing it voluntarily. So these are all skeletal muscles which are voluntary muscles. We will see the description. I'm not going into details of this here. We will do that when we are actually going into that. So smooth muscle, that is another type, which are also called as involuntary muscles. Now smooth muscles, they are also called as non-striated muscles because they don't have these striations, or they don't have these bands or patterns of actin and myosin. That's why they are non-striated or smooth muscles or involuntary muscles. So for example, in your lung, you inhale and exhale. You can't really, control that. I mean, you can control the amount of breath, but you can't stop the expansion and contraction of the lung as such, right? So that way, these muscles, they are involuntary. Or for example, again, the stomach peristalsis movement. You have eaten the food and now you say stomach, you don't have to move at all. So that peristalsis, you cannot stop. That is involuntary. It is bound to happen by, and it is being taken care by the body itself based on, again, certain hormonal action or certain, what we say, electric nerve impulses. So that way, these smooth muscles, they are functional. And cardiac muscle, these are specific and specialized type of muscles. You might wonder why it is called involuntary again, because they function on their own without any input as such. Rather, they cannot be stopped. Like the cardiac muscle cannot be stopped from contracting and relaxing again. So that is why they are also called as involuntary. But they are not similar to these involuntary muscles like smooth muscles. They are drastically different in their structure and function. So these cardiac muscles, they are present in the cardiomyocytes, which is the one of the layer of the cardiac or the heart in general. So heart has three different layers. What is known as pericardium, mesocardium, and endocardium. And this middle layer of the mesocardium has this cardiomyocytes, which is giving rise to the contraction and relaxation in the heart tissue. Okay, I was thinking, shall we finish one of it at least? Okay, let's finish the skeletal muscle tissue and then we will stop after this. We still have kind of 10 minutes. So skeletal muscle, these are the muscles attached to the skeleton. Skeleton is your bone, right? So, and that is why they are called as skeletal muscle tissue, and that is how they help in the movement as well.
Acha, like while lifting something, the skeletal muscles, like suppose I'm contracting my hand, then how is a skeletal muscle? Like they're only attached to the skeleton, right?
So, but they are not completely attached to the muscles. Sorry, the
Yeah.
bones.
Skeleton. Yeah.
Yeah, like what we are imagining, like if there is a pole and I'm hugging it completely, that's not how they are. So the pole is like a bone and I am the muscle, but I am holding the pole, but I am little away from the pole. That is the analogy.
Okay.
And also you remember there
So
are
when the muscle moves, the bone also moves.
no
So
bone doesn't move.
no, like suppose I'm contracting my how do I explain? Okay, bunk.
So it's like you know, you have a string attached. When you pull that string, something comes closer, and when you push that string, the whatever is on the other side goes away, right? It's something like that. So when the muscles, they are contracting, you are actually pulling the let's say if you are talking about the bicep contraction,
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So you pull the bone also with it. Like suppose my bicep is
you don't
yeah. I didn't pull the bone; it is attached to. Like suppose I flex my bicep. So suppose I try to pull my palm towards my face, so I contract my bicep or a muscle, and then my uh, hand, it automatically comes towards my face, like kind of like that.
so what is the question again there? How does
Nothing
that
else.
happen?
Yeah, how does that happen? Like the contraction. So basically, the contraction moves the bone also with it. Like it's contracting. So why is there movement when there is contraction?
Bone does not move, joints move. Maybe you want to say that,
Yeah.
right? From
Joint.
joint, the bone is moving. But if you, let's say this is the humerus bone that is in the upper arm, uh, like next to biceps and triceps, that will move only in terms of its position, but the bone as such does not move.
Yeah, the bone is not moving.
So that then
It
that
just pulls on the joint.
correct.
Yeah, so the muscle just pulls on the joint, and the joint contracts the bone also.
Right. So that is how these muscles they are attached to the skeleton. Now, like I said earlier, These muscles, they are also known as striated muscles because of the presence of alternate patterns of light and dark bands. That is nothing but the striations, which is a pattern of light and dark band. And this light and dark band, they are because of this actin and myosin protein. So these light and dark bands, they are sarcomeres. Sarcomeres, this is again a type of arrangement of these proteins within these muscle fibers, but you can forget that word. So that is just this arrangement of light and dark band, ultimately the arrangement of actin and myosin along with the other proteins. And these will add the contractibility or extensibility of the whole of the skeletal muscle as such. So that is what is the striation part within the skeletal muscles. Again, these are voluntary muscles composed of muscle fiber. 40% of your body mass will have skeletal muscles. Now, irrespective, like if you say if there is someone who is very skinny, there it might be different. But in an average healthy individual who has normal body mass index, in that case, it will be 40% of the mass which will be of skeletal muscles. Each skeletal tissue also contain myofibrils. Actually, I will show you this diagram. So what exactly happens is, let's say you have too many strings or threads which are kind of coiling around each other, and
Yeah.
then you are making a harder rope-like structure. So these individual strings, they are like myofibrils, and whole of this rope is like your muscle tissue. Yeah, so that's how the arrangement is.
So the muscle is made up of this small myofibrils. So they are coiled around to make the muscle.
So now here what you see is a pipe-like structure or a tube-like structure, right? Now within this there will be many cells, and that is what you see here as a nucleus. Let's say this is one cell, this is other cell. Now again, this is not three-dimensional that you are seeing, it's two-dimensional. So behind this there will be many layers of these cells, and they are attached. So one cell is attached, the other cell is attached, the third cell is attached, and these are present in different layers. So that is individual strand of this cell, that is called as myofibril. And then they form the muscle structure as such. So the cells of this tissue, they are multinucleated. That means they have many nucleus present within that one strand. These are provided with the blood vessels and many elongated mitochondria. Blood vessels, obviously, because they will need certain nutrition from the like the body. So they will have blood vessels, which is very obvious. But most importantly, they have elongated mitochondria. Why? Because muscles, they do higher activity compared to the normal body cells, and you can imagine that. So why? Because you have to continuously keep moving some or the other thing, or even for your own physical displacement and so on. So they will need more energy. So mitochondria has to be elongated. Very logical there. And the glycogen granules. Again, why glycogen granules? Because muscles, they need more energy. So whenever there is lack of glucose in the body, glycogen is stored in these muscles, and that glycogen can be broken down to glucose molecule, and muscle cells, they can generate their own energy from the glycogen to glucose, and then further towards the energy part. So that way, elongated mitochondria and the glycogen granules help in the more production of the energy, so that more function of the muscle. And yeah, obviously the last point is very clear. Okay, any question here in the skeletal muscle part? I will try to show you next time how these muscles are arranged specifically in the myofibril. I actually forgot to put that as a diagram, but in the next class I will show that to you all.
Okay.
Any question, anyone? Adhira, Srihita, Ruchira, Anirudh, Arjun, Siddharth, Ahona.
No, sir, no question.
Okay,
Sir.
so yes, Snehashish.
No, nothing. Not a doubt.
Okay, so let's officially end this class. Thank you very much, people. Have a
Yeah.
nice day, and I will see you, I
Sure.
guess. Yes.
Weren't we gonna have a quiz today?